smugness and groupthink. Well, there's a new scourge in America. You may have heard of it because it's newly famous. It's called fake news. It's something the left is very exercised about, and the idea is propaganda is finding its way into your daily read and influencing your behavior. Hillary Clinton, in some of her first remarks since losing the presidency last month, described it literally as life-threatening. The question is, what should we do about it, and can we do anything without abridging freedom of speech? We want to talk tonight to someone who's on the front lines of the battle over fake news. His name is Tim Lee. He works at Vox.com, the famous and very valuable news site. And he says big media companies aren't doing enough to stop it. Tim joins us now. Tim, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So I don't think anybody is for fake news or for inaccurate information or propaganda. I mean, it's offensive. But I guess the point I would make is it's everywhere. Now, I read Vox.com every day. I've got a rich and varied media diet. And here are some of the things I've learned on your site. And I want you to buckle your seatbelt because this was on Vox. There is a bridge between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. False. There are 102 toilets per person in Boulder, Colorado. Not true. If you had 10.9 billion Syrian refugees, you'd probably only have 3 terror attacks. That's bad math. Here's my favorite. There was a man who escaped both doomed Malaysian Airlines flights. And finally, and I could go on, Germany isn't a major arms dealer. Actually, it's number 3. Kathleen Sebelius resigned because Obamacare was successful. I mean, on and on and on. Your site, like a lot of sites, has fake news on it. Should we shut it down? Should the Congress act? Should Facebook take it out of its news feed?
No, absolutely not. And to be clear, I'm not advocating that Congress do anything here. Facebook's a private company. They set their own editorial policies, and I'm encouraging them to raise the standard for the kind of content that they direct their readers to. And look, you cherry-picked. We've been around for 3 years. We've published hundreds of articles, and yes, we make some mistakes. The difference is when we make mistakes, in those rare occasions, we change the article to fix the mistake. We issue a correction like any reputable news organization.
No, actually, that's it. I'm anticipating you might say that. I checked, and some of these pieces are still up. The IRS scandal is proof the IRS needs a bigger budget? Huh? Sebelius is still there because Obamacare succeeded. That's still up. The idea that, 10.9 billion Syrian refugees would lead to 3 terror attacks, that's still up. I just looked at it. You haven't corrected those things.
So those seem like more analytical things. They're
not true, and it's propaganda. That's what you're accusing the fake news producers of making.
Well, no, I mean, for example, one of the most widely shared fake news articles claimed that the Pope had endorsed Donald Trump. That simply did not happen. There was no evidence that that happened.
Right.
That is different from claiming that, making analysis about why Kathleen Sebelius resigned. You can agree or disagree with that.
It's no different from saying there are 102 toilets per person in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, you're more offended by one than the other, but they're both totally wrong. And the point is, look, who's going to make these decisions? The promise of journalism is, the only reason we're allowed to practice this in the first place, is there's a free flow of information. If you don't like something, explain why it's wrong, make a counter case. And you're saying don't even bother with that, just shut it down. Just crush it.
No, what I'm saying is that the Facebook is part of that free flow of information. They are a company that is in the business of directing people to certain types of content. They are not simply showing people the content that their users are sharing. They're choosing from the many different types of content that their users share which ones are most worth sharing, and they could do a better job of putting first in the news feed the stories that are from more reputable outlets with a history of doing good journalism, and putting at the bottom of the list stories that are clearly factually erroneous, like claiming that, for example, that the Clinton campaign was running a pedophilia ring out of a pizza joint in Washington, D.C. There was no evidence for that.
Okay.
And Facebook could do I mean, they can do the same thing with Fox. If we do publish an inaccurate article, and Facebook determines it to be inaccurate, they should put that to the back of the line as well.
But I guess what bothers me here, and I think it should bother you too, you're a working journalist, you write pieces, you cover things. The idea that someone somewhere is making totally subjective judgments about what's legitimate, what's illegitimate, what's worth sharing, what's not, what's propaganda, what's true. I mean, these are things that are subject to the whims of people, and once you start making those judgments, you start suppressing other points of view. I mean, the New York Times, I assume you would describe it as legitimate. They put all kinds of fake junk out about the election. They predicted Hillary was going to win, Trump could never win, Hispanics would never vote for. I mean, a lot of things they wrote as fact were not fact, but you would never consider suppressing them, would you?
Well, no, but I think that's actually exactly backwards. As journalists, I understand that a key part of journalism is choosing which information is most reputable and showing that information to journalists. And I just think that Facebook, as the largest media organization in the world, arguably, needs to start taking some responsibility, just like the New York Times, just like Fox, just like Fox News. You shouldn't just put any kind of garbage up on the New York Times website. You shouldn't put any garbage up on Fox News. And Facebook should not be sharing an article that says that that the Pope endorsed Donald Trump.
But see, here's
what
what bothers me. When you say take responsibility, what you're really saying is assume more power. And as a journalist whose job it is to challenge those with power, I think you would say, wait a second, Facebook has too much already. It's the most powerful arbiter of information since the invention of language, since people lived in caves and grunted. All the news in America pretty much flows through Facebook. You want to say to them, go beyond your current responsibilities and decide what people can see? I mean, that's too much power concentrated in too few hands, wouldn't you say?
No, I'm not saying that anything should be suppressed. With the news feed, Facebook decides, here are the ones we're going to put at the top of the list, and here are the ones we're going to put at the bottom. Right now, the criteria they use, the primary one is how many times is something shared. And we've seen that people like to share inflammatory stories that are often inaccurate. I'm just saying that Facebook should change the way they prioritize articles so that articles.
So what's inflammatory mean?
Well, I'm just saying that often.
Is it okay to share inflammatory stories you disagree with, right? I mean, to you, a story arguing on behalf of partial-birth abortion would not be inflammatory, but to someone in Utah, it might be. Do you see what I'm saying? It's subjective.
Right. No, I'm not saying that they should suppress inflammatory ones, but I'm saying that often the fake news ones, because you can make up facts, often, saying the Pope endorsed Trump is a very highly shareable story.
That's one example, but I doubt you could name 10. And this is a threat to speech, and I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. You're a journalist, and I kind of get what you're saying, but I think we should be very vigilant about attempts to suppress information that we disagree with, and I hope you would agree with that.
I absolutely agree we should not suppress. But again, Facebook is not the government. Facebook is a private organization.
Right.
It's a large organization, and it's not taking more power. It is using the power it has. It is already making decisions about which articles.
When did the left start making apologies for big business? I guess when big business went left. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Well,
they have more power than the government in my life. I know that. Tim, unfortunately, we're out of time. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We're still waiting for President-elect Donald Trump to speak in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're going to head over to Peter Ducey, who is live. He never stops traveling.